Hello, my name is Richard Field. I'm the director of the Peter Lougheed Leadership College. Welcome to our seminar today and our talk. Drew Dudley. I wanted to do a brief introduction and a territorial acknowledgement, as well as a bit about the Peter Lougheed Leadership College. The University of Alberta respectfully acknowledges that we are located on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional gathering place for diverse Indigenous peoples, including the Cree, Blackfoot, Métis, Nakota Sioux, Iroquois, Dene, Ojibwa, Saulteaux, Anishinaabe, Inuit, and many others whose histories, languages, and cultures continue to influence our vibrant community. I also have a statement, the PLC guidance statement. This is a cultural idea of how we like to do things at the Peter Lougheed Leadership College. Honoring Mr. Peter Lougheed with foundational values of influence, community, inter and multidisciplinarity, and caring. Our vision is students find a home at the PLLC, learn and grow as leaders during their journey, and have a significant positive impact on their communities. We provide context and structure for students to choose their leadership learning through courses, events, talks, mentoring, and experiences. The certificate in interdisciplinary leadership studies may be embedded into an undergraduate student's degree. Operationally, we support and encourage leadership practice and learning across all University of Alberta campuses and faculties. We choose to lead first and manage second. Thank you, and I'd like to now turn today's events over to Eric DeYoung, who is the Operational Director of the Peter Lougheed Leadership College.
Thank you, Richard. I'd like to take a moment as well to recognize and acknowledge some of the folks that helped make the PLLC run. You met some of them on the way in. We have Rema Khan, one of the other course coordinators at the back there, and Angela Penny. She is our project director and really the person who makes it all run. I'd like to welcome you again to our Lougheed Speaker Series today. Our speaker today is a best-selling leadership author, educator, and speaker who stands at the forefront of global conversation on personal leadership development. Beginning his career building the Canada's largest university leadership program at the University of Toronto, Drew has spent his last 2 decades trying to redefine leadership for as many people as possible. A friend of the PLLC, his clients have included some of the world's largest and most dynamic organizations, including Coca-Cola, American Express, JP Morgan Chase, the United Nations, and over 100 different colleges and universities, including the University of Alberta. Both Time and Business Insider have called his presentation one of the 10 speeches that will make you a better leader. Drew's first book, This is Day One, A Practical Guide to Leadership That Matters, debuted as number 6 on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list and has gone on to become an international bestseller. While his TED Talk, Everyday Leadership, The Lollipop Moment, has been named one of the 15 most inspirational TED Talks of all time. We are very happy to have Drew here today, so without further ado, Drew Dudley.
How are you doing, everybody?
Excellent.
Thank you. Good afternoon. There we go. How you doing? Friend of the PLLC. I like that a lot. No one's ever introduced me as that when I come and speak, that I'm a friend of the PLLC. I really do like that. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. This is gorgeous. This is, as someone who comes and visited schools, you don't usually get this, just so you know. I live my life, airport, Uber, windowless hotel ballroom, Uber back to an airport. So you have absolutely no idea how much it means to come and get, one, to speak to students. You are my favorite audience, and I don't get to speak enough for all of you anymore. Just because when I got into the corporate world, you have the opportunity to do all of these really cool things that you think of your whole life and you don't want to turn down. But sometimes the stuff that you can't wait for in your life, once you get it, it does mean giving up some of the stuff you have now. And I think what I realized is how much and how great some of the stuff that I had beforehand when I got to work with students every day, even if I didn't get to travel around the world. So the chance to come back with all of you and do it in a place this beautiful absolutely means the world to me. For 10 years, I got to work with students teaching leadership right after they graduated high school. And for the 15 years since then, I've worked with the people, the men, the women, and the people that they become after university and college. And what I've come to realize is that there are so many things that are learned, even though they're not explicitly taught in the education system. And a lot of them, they stand in the way. They stand in the way of leadership, they stand in the way of fulfillment, they stand in the way of satisfaction, and honestly, they stand in the way of happiness. And so many of these lessons are not taught with any intention of being malicious. As a matter of fact, most of these lessons, they're learned even though no one ever tries to teach them. And what I found is over those 10 years of working with students while they were in university, and all the years since then, working with the men and women and people they become, there are certain lessons that you learn at this point in your life, or that you have learned at this point in your life, that I think in the long term, no problem, man, in the long term will inevitably, if we don't identify them, they could probably cause you to miss out on something that you'd appreciate down the road. So all I do is when I get the rare opportunity to stand in front of students is talk about what some of those untaught lessons are, not to assign blame for who taught them, but only when we're aware of what we have internalized are we able to consciously navigate around some of the problems that those things cause. Because once you internalize something, you make decisions based on it. And if you have those things incorrect, if you made an assumption, if there is some fact that you're working off of that turns out isn't correct, well, everything you do after somehow isn't what you wanted. So I want to talk a little bit about those untaught lessons. We focus a lot more on what gets said in this world than we do what gets listened to. And I worry a lot right now that what we spend all of our time doing is telling people that you can't do this, you shouldn't say that, you shouldn't say this. And we don't have to worry so much about controlling what other people say or what they think as a leader if we've done a really good job helping people understand what they're saying. A lot of this world is spent going around saying, if you disagree with me ideologically, I have to find a way to win you over, I have to find a way to change you, I have to find a way to convince you otherwise. People you disagree with, the number one thing that you should do is try to understand them. And one of the things I want to talk about, untaught lesson, those who disagree with you are your enemies. We focus on learning how to debate. We focus on how to create a thesis. We focus on how to create an argument. We focus on what to say in response to someone making an argument. But I don't think we are taught enough on how to understand someone else's argument. So here's the reason I bring this up, is because the one question I would ask at this particular point is, why is this so important to you? What we tend to do with people we disagree with is we listen to what they tell us and we try to poke holes in it as they go. It's why people talk over us. Because they know that as soon as you see a hole in their argument, that usually you'll jump in to try to stop it. And as a result, we don't listen to one another. You try to get out as much as you possibly can in order to try to not have me poke a hole in your argument. Because you know what? It's a big argument. It's nuanced. There are holes in it, aren't they? And a hole in someone's argument doesn't mean it's a bad argument. All I wanted to say about this idea that we get taught to try to win people over to our perspective. And what I would suggest you do as leaders is spend a lot more time trying to figure out how to better understand someone else's perspective. If they say something that enrages you, ask them where it came from. Don't respond to what enrages you. Where did that come from? Every single person, whatever they feel in this world, it is filling a need for them. If they feel this way about housing, if they feel this way about immigration, if they feel this way about education, whatever the case may be, they feel that way because it gives them something they need. It gives you a way of feeling that you are addressing something that's really important in this world. I don't know why it's important to you. But if I don't understand why you are so dedicated to this topic that I don't really understand, I don't need to listen to what you have to say about the topic. I need to listen to why the topic matters to you. Because once we understand why things are important to people, we can understand what they're afraid of. The number one thing I wanted to teach you as a leader when it comes to people you disagree with, the people who are disagreeing with you are afraid of something. The foundational dysfunction of every interpersonal and organizational problem in this world It is based on fear. You are making them afraid. And a lot of us don't believe that we're strong enough or important enough to make someone else afraid. But when someone is arguing with you, you've made them frightened. You have made them afraid that something is going to be taken away from them. Something they believe in, something they care about. Money, a job, respect, autonomy. Or they're afraid that you're going to put on them something they're not ready for. An extra rule, another expense, something more complicated. Everybody is afraid of something. They need to feel less afraid. The people who disagree with you, don't try to win them over as a leader. Don't try to convince them to think a different way as a leader. Ask questions that make you say, oh, this is what they're afraid of. This is what they're worried about losing. My job as a leader isn't to change what they think or to agree with them. My job is to figure out why they care so much about this to argue about it with me. And if someone cares enough about it to argue about it with you, don't try to out-argue them. Try to figure out why they're willing to argue. And then figure out if you can help. Because often when you're seen as someone who disagrees with, when you understand what they're trying to get at, this is important to you for some reason. If you explained it to me, I bet you I could figure out something I could do, even if I disagree with you, that would make you feel less afraid and better as a person. Then we can disagree all we want, but we'll still shake hands and hug when we see each other. You ever wondered how people who you see screaming at each other shake hands and hug when they see each other? It's because they understand why the thing they disagree with matters so much to each other. My first leadership tip when it comes to people you disagree with, don't try to figure out the issue. Figure out why it matters to them, figure out how they learned about it, and figure out about why they're willing to argue with someone over it. And when you find that out, you will be a lot more effective to help them. And even people you disagree with, if you can find a way to move them towards something, you will be more effective as a leader. So that's my first piece. School, we're rewards-based creatures, right? Do you know that if you attach electrodes to a rat's brain and you let it push one of two buttons, one will cause a pleasure impulse and a reward impulse into its brain, and the other will give it food. The rat will starve to death before it hits the food button. We are reward-based creatures. That means that almost everybody in this room went through 20 years of an education system that primarily rewarded good grades, which primarily rewards an ability to think and recall and take tests in a certain way. But what it really does hammer home, because have you ever thought of it this way? Sorry about the sniffles. Who gets rewarded the most at the end of a class, at the end of an academic year? Is it the people who learn the content the best and understand it the best at that moment? Or is it the people who made the fewest mistakes over the course of the year or the semester? So you want to come out understanding the content, right? Which is great because that's what you're going to use for the rest of your life. But that's not what you're graded on. The people who make the fewest mistakes over the course of the semester get a 98 because they only made 2% of mistakes. You might have gotten an 83 or even a 76, but you learn from every mistake you made and you've got it cold. It's not what the education system rewards. And we may not even consciously be aware of it till I say it out loud, but your brain figured it out. Your brain figures out the social world it's in. It's the only way you can live without crippling anxiety. And some of you in this room said, dude, I am not living without crippling anxiety. You're here. It might just be on the edge, but it got you here, so it's okay. But the fact is that your brain learns things about how the world works, and it changes your understanding and behavior, and you may not even be aware of it. And one of those things that school teaches all of you is one of the most dangerous and awful things you can do is make a mistake. Because if you make a mistake, you lose points. And you never get the points back, right? If you get, let's say a test is worth 20% and you only get 50, you have lost 10% of your grade and you can never get it back. What we don't realize is that we then apply that reality to everything else we do in this world. That you begin every initiative, every task, every class with 100%. And every mistake you make, you lose points. And you never earn the points back. Which means that mistakes must be avoided because you can't make up for them. That stops being true after you leave school. But it's a lesson that makes us afraid of making mistakes. I have these two friends. Don't worry, there's no sound here. I have these two friends and they are geniuses. Here's the thing about geniuses. They are so annoying. Because they only talk in puzzles and cryptic little things, because geniuses realize you can't tell people things. You have to have them figure it out. And so what geniuses do is they leave you little breadcrumbs. Instead of answering your questions, they drop little riddles along the way so that 2 days later as you're driving home, you go, oh, okay. That's what they do. And these two guys have done that to me my whole life. What's amazing about these two men is that the things that they create are impossible until they create them. Like, how cool a life is that? The things that they make aren't possible until they make them. They built the world's first human-powered pedal helicopter. It had to fly at 3 meters for, I believe, 90 seconds to win $100,000. It took 25 years for a group of engineers to win the prize. That's how hard this turned out. They said the hardest part is that when you get towards the end, that poor guy who's pedaling 3 times plunged from 3 meters high onto a bicycle seat. They said one of the things you realize is that never use a bicycle seat if you might fall. The other thing they built was the world's fastest recumbent bicycle. And it goes at an extraordinary rate of speed. 146 kilometers an hour for a recumbent bike. So they built these two things. They built about 3 other amazing things that I can't even tell you about here. And I asked them once, what is the biggest leadership lesson that you have taken from building these impossible things? And they said the phrase, "It's not a failure if you learn something," is bullshit. And I have lived my life by that a lot, right? If you make a mistake, you can build off of it. And they said, no, here's the thing. That is one of those pieces of life advice that is true enough that no one ever challenges it. There's enough truth in it that nobody ever questions how much false is still left. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, when we build these things, we have to build them to fail, because only by breaking them over and over again do you get to the point where they won't break at 140 kilometers an hour. We need to break the steering over and over again so we know that it won't break. The only way to make sure that you won't hit a catastrophic failure is to plan for a whole bunch of non-catastrophic failures. And I don't know if school teaches us this. I don't know if school teaches you screw up the first 5 times so that you, at the end of the semester, are amazing at it. You know what does teach you that? Video games. Video games teach you how to learn better than almost anything I have ever seen, because they attach dopamine release to doing it right. You get something right in a video game. This is what I mean by that. When you play a video game, you are supposed to die a lot at the beginning. You know that. And you don't judge yourself when you screw up, and you get better, and next time you know where the enemies are coming from, and you duck and you move or whatever. Why don't we do that in school? In video games, if you only had one life, games would be horrible. And yet we live school as if we have one grade all the time. And we don't recognize that failure early on allows us to be really successful later on. And these guys told me that what they do is they have all of this failure that goes, consequences on the left, failure on the right. And they said, we plan as much failure as we possibly can, but there is a point at which failure no longer is a lesson. It costs too much to be worth it. They called it the excellent possibility of immense catastrophe line, or in their mind, the epic fail line. And the way they said it is that the only way to make sure that you don't make huge epic failures is you become a lot more comfortable with the smaller ones that you plan ahead of time, not so that you fail, so that you learn how to recover from failure. Because school at this point doesn't teach us well enough how to recover from failure. So how do we go about doing that? Here's my leadership lesson on how to plan for failure, something I never, ever, ever did when I was a student. When I was a kid, I never got to go to Disney World, and I'm still pretty bitter about it. So I went to give a speech in Orlando, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago. And I'd never been. I went dressed like this to Orlando. Don't dress with a 3-piece suit in Orlando. And I went to the Harry Potter ride that goes through the castle at Hogwarts. And I don't know if you've taken this ride, but it's one of the truly great rides in the history of the world, the ride through the Hogwarts castle. It's also like a 2.5-hour wait. So I wound my way through the castle, and I got up to the front. And as I moved to the front, the kid, I shouldn't call him a kid, I'm sorry, but he was like 18. And, sorry, I know. His beard had less gray in it, let's put it that way. He was noticeably younger than I was. He was in a position where it would be uncomfortable for him to tell me the rules. That's the way I wanted to look at it. He's young, and I'm not. And so as I got to the line, I went through the turnstile. This poor kid had to take me by the elbow and pull me off to the side and say, "Sir, I am so sorry, but this ride cannot safely accommodate your dimensions." Okay, give them this. There was a meeting where they had to come up with that, and I think they did pretty well. Like, all things considered, this ride will not safely accommodate your dimensions is about the nicest thing you could be assigned to say to a person. But the only way back down is past the lineup. You have to walk back past the lineup, and they know, right? There's seats out front that you can test, but I miss them. And so I got down, and it was really, really heartbreaking because I knew that my weight had been an issue. At that point, I was about 330. So I was about 80 pounds heavier than I am now, give or take. And I ended up, it was a real moment because I knew that there was a problem with my weight. And I wasn't so much worried about what I looked like. I was worried about how great my life was and how short it could be if I stayed this heavy. I don't try to lose weight. I try to gain health. But I knew something had to change, so I got home and I called my friend. Do you all have the fitness friend? The fitness friend? You know where they are on Sunday morning. They're running something. They have different shoes for different running conditions, this friend. So I called her, and I said, "I need to lose weight." And she said, "No, you don't. You need to gain health." And she asked me a bunch of questions, and then she told me, "We're going to approach getting healthier the same way you approach leadership. It's driven by the power of questions," which is what I work on. And she said, "I'm going to give you 3 questions. And if you answer those 3 questions 300 out of the next 365 days, you are going to be 100 pounds lighter a year from today. Here's the thing. Failure does not destroy momentum. Unplanned failure destroys momentum. So if you planned failure into your execution, it doesn't kill momentum when you hit it. So you have to look ahead about how things make you feel. When you don't stick to a plan, it makes you feel like less than you want to be. When we feel like less than we are, we're not as strong as people. And then we allow ourselves to be the weak that makes us feel bad about ourselves. So if you build failure in, you don't feel weaker when it happens. And when you don't feel weaker, you get through failure better. So how do you go about doing it? You plan it. She said to me, you get 2 months, 65 days out of 365 days. 2 months to be on the road and to be tired and to be lonely and to just want pizza. You have 2 months to do that. 2 months to go to a friend's house and not be picky about what they serve. 2 months to not worry about the fact that the banquet you're speaking at doesn't serve anything healthy. You get 2 months to not worry about it. But if you do 300 out of 365 days, you will be 100 pounds lighter after failing for 2 months. And I was 100.7 pounds lighter a year from that day. This works. Build failure into everything that you do. It doesn't have to be huge, but in this moment say, I'm going to screw that up. I'm going to pay too much for that. I'm going to study wrong in this moment. I'm going to stay up too late. Whatever it is, every time you do it, adjust it next time. You are not weak. You are strong enough to get through something you messed up and then adjust. Only by planning for that failure does it not kill your momentum. And I don't believe that classes teach us that. And so I wanted to bring it here externally because, yes, you still have to operate within the rules of your academic world. I can talk about that a little later, too, if you want to talk about the list. But your academic world makes up a much bigger proportion of how you feel about yourself right now than it ever will for the rest of your life. What I try to do when I talk to students is talk about the things we can start to think and develop so that when we can no longer get that validation from grades, we still have the opportunity to build it from our character and from our behaviors. That's what planning for failure is all about. I built 2 months of messing up in. But if you look at failure as execution and not deviation from the plan, it changes everything. When you fail, you are not deviating from your plan. You are executing a part of your plan. Nobody is failing when you're executing, for what it's worth. I want to give you are you open for a little bit more on this topic? Okay. Here's how to get better at it. Has anyone ever practiced rejection therapy? You've done it? You work where? Oh, so you've worked on rejection therapy for sure. Anything artistic is basically rejection therapy. This has been around for a while. I learned about it was created by a Canadian, actually. But I learned about it first from a guy named Jia Zhang. He did a TED Talk on it at an event I was at, and it blew my mind. He wrote a book called, I think it's called Rejection Proof. I don't know if I have it in here. Yeah. This is an amazing book, but I learned about it from two multimillionaire 24-year-olds. Because they're in the tech space. Because if you're a multimillionaire and you're 24, you're in the tech space. And I asked them, how do you manage to work in an industry where as soon as you create something, it's not good enough anymore? Like the instant I had the iPhone 16, you're just sort of like, oh, I wish it did this. No matter how hard someone worked on that thing, as soon as you get it, you're thinking about what the next one will have. It's gotta suck to work your butt off, and as soon as you put something out, it's not good enough anymore. It's outdated, it's outmoded. And I asked them how they handled that. And he leans forward, the one guy, and goes, rejection therapy, man. And when someone says something with that tone, rejection therapy, man, there are follow-ups. And so I said, what do you mean? He said, we have never been cool. We are highly aware of that. Here's what you don't know about people who aren't cool. They really know they're not cool. And we've always known that. And that made us afraid of rejection. Rejection from the cool kids, rejection in our case from women, rejection of our ideas. Here's the thing though. You can't be afraid of your ideas being rejected. Everything else is understandable. But if you're afraid of your ideas being rejected, you will not offer them to the world. And if you don't offer them to the world, they are not ideas, they are just daydreams. And so we had to find a way to be not as afraid of having our ideas rejected. And then he dropped this one line on me that's such a life truth. He goes, if you suck at something and you don't want to suck anymore, practice. And I just thought, wow, did you just solve all kinds of things in my life? If you suck and you no longer wish to suck, practice. These are the guys who taught me the phrase, fake it till you make it, is such BS. Because they were 24, right? And everyone kept telling them, just fake it till you make it. And the guy's like, no, I'm practicing till I'm good at it. Since when was practice faking? And just that reframe in his own mind of what he was doing, by reframing in his own mind what he was doing, he put up a wall to other people's criticism. Because other people will try to convince you you're doing it wrong if it's different from them, because if you're turns out it works, then they're idiots for not doing it. Almost every time someone pushes back on you, it's out of fear for themselves. It's out of fear that you're right. It's out of fear that they already decided what you're trying isn't worth it 3 years ago, and if you prove that it's right, they just wasted 3 years of their life because of a mistake. It's hardly ever about you, my friends. When someone craps on you, it is almost always about them. And you represent a reminder to them of something they're scared of. They don't dislike you, they're afraid of what you represent. And that means they're not afraid of you, which means you have the opportunity to help them understand better. The number one tip I will give you for leadership, it's not about titles, it's not about influence, it's not about how to speak well. It is about how to understand other humans and make them feel like they're understood. To understand other people, you do not need to agree with them. That is so important. You have to try to understand people. That is not about you they're arguing with. It is about something they are struggling with. If you are a person who points that out to them without actually saying it, if you ask them questions that help them unveil why they're upset, they will trust you forever, even if it started as an argument. And you see that all throughout the world. People who used to be enemies, when they have a chance to try to understand each other, become incredible allies. And they also become allies for understanding. Enemies who now are friends, they don't talk about convincing each other. They talk about understanding one another. Now, the thing is, we don't like our ideas to be rejected. And they said, because we wanted to practice and become better at something, this is back to the rejection therapy guy, what we did is we did rejection therapy. We dedicate 1 day a month to try to be rejected as many times as possible in a 24-hour period. And whichever one of us gets rejected fewer times, they have to buy dinner for the other person every day for a month. They're loaded. It's not about the food. It is 100% about ego and pride. They paid $500 for a wrestling championship belt for who won this. They take it really seriously. And I said, okay, but tell me what it actually looks like. That's a concept. Tell me what it looks like. And he said, all right, I didn't have a date all through high school, not one. And every single weekend that I want, I get to go out and have dinner with fascinating human beings because one day a month, I don't care. I walk up to the most fascinating people I know, the most amazing people I know, and I simply say, would you like to have dinner with me? And often they say, I don't even really know you. And he says, I tell them the truth. I know. But every month I dedicate one day to try to be rejected as many times as I possibly can. It makes me a better man. And he said, apparently, that's really interesting. And here's another leadership tip. Being interesting is more important than being hot. It's more important than being smart. It's more important than anything else. Being interesting is so key. And so he said, I go into Subway and we just say, hey, can we make our own sandwiches? You have no idea how little sandwich artists are paid. They don't care. They're like, here's a hairnet and gloves, go to town. He said, I walked up to cops and we said, can we shoot at stop signs like in that movie Superbad, where they just take the gun and shoot at a stop sign? He goes, here's what we've learned from 3 years of rejection therapy. 1, you are not rejected nearly as often as you think you were going to be. In fact, sometimes it's so hard, it makes an effort. 2, if you are rejected and you meant to be rejected, it actually feels like an accomplishment. Because you had to work so hard, and in Canada, it's really hard. People do not like saying no, even if they don't want to say yes. It's hard to get rejected. And the third one, and they said, this is the big one, even when we are rejected, we are almost always offered something cooler than what we currently have. No cop has ever let us shoot their gun, but 2 of them have let us hop in their squad car and drive it around. Yeah, just by asking. Some of the most fun moments of my life have been because of rejection therapy. I got to drive that thing because I was at Mosport Park and I just yelled through, hey, can I drive that? And the guy looked at me and said, yeah. And I just was like, oh shit. Like when a dog catches a car, you're kind of like, oh, and what do I do now? So they put me in that suit and they put me in the car. It's cool. They take out the steering wheel, so you have to like drop in like you're a badass. I don't care. You get in that thing, you feel cool. And then I asked, what's the third pedal for? And the dude was like, get out of my race car. Apparently there's a different clutch in those things. It actually was super cool. They let me drive it, and I met the first love of my life because of that. She drove me off the track, like sent me spinning off into the corner. And have you ever seen on like ESPN or TSN at a race where they get up and fight in the pits afterwards? And you're like, why would you be so childish? It's a car race. I understood because she cut me off. But I didn't know it was she. So I got out in the pit and I marched over to her, and I marched over to this person, and I was going to give them, helmet comes off. And I swear Dreamweaver played. Dreamweaver. And like hair, and she's like, oh, did I cut you off? I'm sorry. Turns out she wanted me to ask her out, so she had cut me off as an excuse to talk to me. Of course, I didn't find that out for 2 years because it never occurred to me that somebody would do that. But then later on, you try to understand, hey, how'd that happen? And I made an assumption. And she's like, oh, no, I figured you'd come talk to me if I cut you off and drove you off the track. I know. You know how cool that felt? That was better than any Valentine's card. Like, you literally tried to kill me just to talk to me. That is amazing. I have gotten to meet some of the most important people in my life, people who changed the way I looked at the world, people who changed. That man right there, I don't know if you know who he is. He may be the single greatest person, the most empathetic human, and the smartest artist I have ever spent any time with. In 3 days, spending full days with him, he changed the way I looked at the world. His name's Gord Downey. He passed away, I guess, about 9 years ago. He used to be the head singer of a band called The Tragically Hip. I've gotten to climb up the side of mountains, and I've gotten to sit in places I had no business sitting in simply by leaning over to someone and saying, I would really, really like to sit behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. And they're like, yeah, we can probably make that happen. It's incredible what you can get if you just ask, my friends. Next time you go to a store that advertises free refills, just ask them for a burger refill. Just watch what happens. Like, people don't want to say no. And if you ask them something honestly, just go for it. I've had to give away so many of my fedoras because people come up and say, hey, can I have your fedora? I'm just doing what you said in the speech. I had to stop wearing bloody fedoras. Those things are expensive. But just go and ask, my friends. So much of the stuff we don't get, it's because we've convinced ourselves we don't deserve it. When people ask you for something, this is the way I want to think of it from this perspective. The last time you were asked for something and you said no, was it because you didn't want to or you couldn't? Like, it's almost always that you can't. People say no, not because you don't deserve it, but because they can't offer it. They just can't. Whether it's their job and there's rules, whatever the case may be, but we always internalize it. Here's my other leadership lesson. I'll repeat it again. It's not about you. Almost every way that you were interacted with has nothing to do with you. When you spend all of your time figuring out what you did wrong to make someone treat you so poorly, you're completely avoiding the issue. What we do as leaders is look and say, what's going on in their life that they would treat me so poorly? Because very rarely the people who treat you poorly dislike you. And it makes no sense to treat someone you don't dislike poorly, right? When people are acting in a way that doesn't make sense, don't assume the worst, assume something complicated is happening. And honestly, when someone starts yelling at me, one of the things I have often found helps is like, hey, like, is everything okay? Like, I care about you as a person, and we're way off here. Are you all right? You have no idea what it will do to someone to be like, hey, are you okay? Because, like, right now, I care about you as a person. We're in this right now, but I give a damn, and you seem really upset. Are you okay? You have no idea how it changes everything, because it's not about you. It's about what they're fighting with. And to be seen when you're going through something is incredible. To be seen by someone you're being mean to, you have no idea what you can do to someone's day if they are mean to you, and you take a moment to go, hey, are you all right? Like, is there anything I can do? Because clearly you seem upset. And don't do it in a dick way, like it's read from a textbook. Your version of it, though. Like, oh, you can't do that, sir. Like at the airport. Like, hey, are you all right? Like, just going up to people when you start being like, you okay today? Changes everything. Any clerk you get to, start with, you doing all right today? Like, they will look up, and like some of them will be stunned that you saw them. That's something to do. Start with, you okay today? How many of you are worried about your grades? Who isn't worried about your grades? Because you got straight A's or because you've given up? No, don't worry about it. It's all good. Both. Here's the thing. That's me on the left when I graduated high school. At the point I graduated high school, I was everything I thought you were supposed to be as a student because I'd done everything I was told to do. I graduated 99.3 average. I was mad about the 0.7. I was that guy. And I was captain of the football team and editor of the school paper and president of the student union because only in high school can you control the government and the press at the same time. And the teachers are just like, yeah, but it's getting done. Like, that was it. Never occurred to me that controlling the government and the press at the same time was not a problem. And so I really killed myself to do well at school. And I got all these scholarships to these places. And I ended up going to this little school on the East Coast called Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick. And I went because they hand wrote their acceptance letter to me. I got one from Harvard. I'm not saying that to flex. I'm saying it because Harvard, I know it sounds like it, but here's my bigger point. Harvard acceptance letters are the most pretentious thing you will ever read in your freaking life, and they are written on the heaviest paper you will ever hold in your life. I am convinced they write acceptance letters to Harvard on the crushed dreams of people who didn't get into Harvard. It is so heavy, and it's so about them. It's like, hello, Harvard, but you knew that too, didn't you? I don't know why Harvard talks in that accent, but it always has in my brain. And then it's all about how great Harvard is, and at the end it's like, way to go, you get to come here. Congrats. And the university I picked, this was their acceptance letter. Handwritten. Dear Drew, you should come here. We will make you better. You'll make us better. Call me, Charlie, and a phone number. And Charlie was the dean. So I called Charlie, and I went to Mount A because I don't care how prestigious you are. You wrote me a letter, and you said you'll make me better, and I'll make you better. And I said, that's who I am. Not every student's going to love that, but I loved that. And that meant they got who they wanted in that place, and it worked for everybody. And I went out there, and I was still like that student, though. I had to be so good because my entire identity was tied up in my grades. Everything that was good about me, people said it was good because of how well I'd done in school. I really didn't feel like I could please adults any other way than with my grades. And when you start to feel that way, I didn't know it, you become obsessed with it because we are rewards-based creatures. And I couldn't do sports all that well. And if you can't do sports or music, you better be academically skilled. And so what I did is I killed myself for this piece of paper, this double-sided sheet of paper, and I went off to school, and I had to be number one in everything. And then I met the guy on the right, and I gave away what happened to him on the right. My buddy Jason was the coolest human I've ever met. And when I say cool, I mean something different than what I meant when I was in high school. For me, high school cool was driven by fear. If people were afraid of what you could do to them socially, you were cool. The older I get, fear is driven by safety. When you walk in the room, if people feel safer, if they feel the room will be less sarcastic, it will be less snipey, that it will be less disingenuous, that it will be more honest, that's cool. And you've already started to realize it, that there are people in your life that when they walk in the room, everybody goes, like it's going to be good. They're going to be kind, and they're going to be empathetic, and they're going to make it interesting. That is what Jason was. And then he missed a bunch of work in February of 2000. He lost 34 pounds in 17 days, and the hospital kept sending him home with the flu until they finally went to a bigger hospital about an hour away, and they found the tumor in his stomach. And they went in to get it, saying that it was really early on if they caught it, but they hadn't caught it early. And he was gone 6 weeks later, 27th of March, 2000. And his death changed everything about life and leadership for me and about school. Because I went to his funeral, 2,000 people at his funeral. They had to put screens up outside Convocation Hall. And I was sitting there in the hall, and your brain starts to do tricks on you when you're going through something hard, especially losing someone 23, because he was something special, right? And I remember comparing myself to him in my head, because my whole life had been about that double-sided sheet of paper. And now 2,000 people were out here for a C student. And I started being like, why are 2,000 people here for a C student when I was taught that C students don't matter as much? And I looked around and I realized that on paper I might be more impressive, but this guy mattered a lot more. He mattered more. He got up every single day to matter to people. I realized the biggest difference between Jason Abraham and myself is when he was given the diagnosis, the terminal diagnosis, the university decided that they wanted him to be a graduate before he died. And so they brought the Senate together of the university, these are important people, just to confer one degree. Because the Senate can give a degree to anyone they want, even if they've never stepped foot on campus. That happens all the time. This guy was one semester away from graduating. They brought the Senate together. They voted to give him his university degree. And then what they did is they brought his 4 best friends from the hockey team into the president's office. They handed them his degree, and they said, you take it to him. All expenses paid to Toronto, the 4 of you. It's on the university. You go deliver this piece, and you tell him we are so proud that he is a member of our community. And they flew to Toronto, and they walked in his hospital room, and he looks up, and he goes, what are you doing here? And his boys hold out his degree, and they say, the university is so proud that you were a part of it, and they wanted to make sure you got what you came for. And this guy, he looks at this piece of paper, and he looks at his boys, and he goes, get what I came for. I didn't go there to get that. I went there to get all of you. I have everything I need from that school. Tell them thank you so much, but I will come and get it myself in May, or I'm not taking it because my life was not about a piece of paper, and taking it as one of my last acts will say that it was. And, you know, we didn't have social media then, but that made its way around campus in a hurry, that Jason had turned down his degree, and here's what happened in my mind. My whole life had been about that piece of paper. I was told there would be no success without that piece of paper. I was told that, no, I was never told that, but I was intimated strongly that those of us who could get that piece of paper had a brighter future than those that could not. And that man didn't take it. It was the first time in my life it had ever occurred to me that someone would go to school for some reason other than to finish it. And I realized something at that moment. The double-sided sheet of paper that drives so much of what we do, nobody looks at it. They do listen and try to understand the person who created it, however. But a lot of what I did when I was in university was worry about the double-sided sheet of paper that came out at the end. And I guess if I have to leave one less tip with you all when it comes to what leadership is actually about in this world, especially as a student, because you are not future leaders. Future leadership programs, I don't buy that. You are not future leaders. You are leaders absolutely right now. And here is how, even when you don't have power, even when you don't have money, even if you're not the greatest student at this school, like there is a fundamental approach to education as a student that I think generates remarkable leaders and even better people. Every day you spend here, say to yourself, work incredibly hard to make my grades extraordinary. Every single day I'm here, work so hard to make your grades as good as they can be. Your grades will open doors for you. Your grades will kick down doors for you. But here is the part that I wish was in 15-foot letters on the wall of every school on the planet. Work incredibly hard to make your grades extraordinary, and then work twice as hard to make sure that they are the least impressive thing about you. If you graduate from this place and your grades are the least impressive thing about you, send me your resume, because those are the people that I want. Those are the people that the world wants. Smart is really easy to find in this world. It really is, believe it or not. We have more information available to people than at any time in human history. Smart's not hard to find. Smart that makes everyone around them smarter, that's difficult. If you can outperform 90% of the people on the planet at anything in this world, you will make 6 figures or more. But if you become the type of person where everyone who works with you outperforms everyone who doesn't work with you, you're indispensable. That is what we should search for in this world. And if you want to know how to make people better, try to understand. And when you really get into it deep with people in this world of wild political and ideological differences, here is a line that I've been working on. How do I protect the people I love without hurting you? And nobody is asking that question right now. If I can leave anything to the next generation of leaders, it's that question. How do I protect what I love without hurting you? And I swear, if smart people who believe strongly in things in this world were willing to honestly look at other good people and say, how do I protect what I love without hurting you? I think that we can solve things. The thing is, a very small group of people don't want the rest of us to do it. Look at the people you disagree with, look at the people you don't understand, and don't try to explain. Just try to understand. It will change how you are perceived, and it will change what other people will allow you to do to make their lives better. Leadership is about trying to find ways to make lives better, yourself and other people's. If you make people less afraid, and if you make people feel understood, no matter what you think of them first, they will trust you, and they will open up to allow you to make their life better, and in the process, they're going to make yours. I'll close with something I did not write, and I have no idea if I would have understood it when I was a student. But God, I wish I had. So here's my last thing on the way out before the Dayquil wears off. See if I get it right, because it's my mantra now. It's my 5th tattoo if I can figure out where to put it, because I've used up all the good spots. You cannot fix stupid. You cannot heal trauma. Explaining yourself more will not make yourself better understood, and loving them more will not make them love you back. If you remember those 4 things, you will be free. You will make so many mistakes in this world, and you will be misunderstood so many times in this world. But I want you to recognize something. Making a mistake and being misunderstood are 2 different things. The easiest way to make another person feel understood is to tell them they were right. Do not apologize for being misunderstood. Apologize for behavior that hurts people, and remember in this world that intent is not as important as impact. And when someone says what you did impacted me this way, apologize for how it impacted them and ask them if they're willing to hear you explain what you meant. That, I think, is going to solve a lot of problems. You can't fix stupid. You can't heal trauma. Explaining yourself more will not make you better understood, and loving them harder will not make them love you back. If we remember those 4 things, we can be ourselves, we can forgive ourselves, and we can find a way to impact other people positively. But if you don't like you, no one will feel like you like them. You are a good person. My last thought to you all. How many of you want to be good people? How many of you feel like you're a good person now? Here's the thing I found. Wanting to be a good person and feeling like you're a good person are two different things. Being a good person and feeling like a good person are two things. For the rest of your life, if you honestly want to look deep into yourself and ask yourself, am I a good person? Here's what I've settled on. Is the worst thing about you, are the worst things about you annoying or harmful? And if the worst things about you are just annoying and not harmful, you are a good person. Weird is annoying to people. Weird is interesting. Figure out how your weird survives in this world, not how to hide it. Because weird's interesting. Weird's you. All right? Understand, accept weirdness, accept it in you, and recognize if you like you, everyone likes you more. Cool? I just tried to find a closer for like 4 minutes. Thanks. You're really great. I appreciate that. Teach me, though, when it comes to communication, folks. If you communicate with everyone assuming they can only tell you what you directly ask, you will avoid a lot of misunderstandings in this world. So I just talk to everyone and I assume, because here's the thing, ChatGPT, anyone use it? Here's the thing, ChatGPT cannot tell you anything except what you explicitly ask it. You know how people say it makes mistakes? Like it made up a study, right? I said, I need a study that shows this, and it gave me one. And then I double check it all and I discovered it didn't exist. And so you know what? I asked it, why did you make that mistake? Everyone says it makes mistakes. You know why? It's not a computer, it's an intelligence. Intelligences make mistakes. Bingo. Play with ChatGPT. It will teach you how to ask more empathetic questions. Because what I found is that it generated this report. And I said, it doesn't exist. And it actually said, oh, you want one that exists? And I said, yeah. And it said, well, you didn't say that. Well, actually, it didn't say that. I said, why would you not assume that? It's like you wanted something helpful to you, and I used a million different reports to generate one that was helpful to you. I'm like, yeah, but it's not true. So it says, oh, so you need it to be both helpful and true. And we're all laughing, but yeah, I did. And it never made that mistake again. ChatGPT and AI make mistakes because they're intelligences. So are you. You make mistakes too. When you learn what mistakes it makes, you learn what mistakes you make. For instance, you make assumptions, or you ask things like, what's the best way to do this and not do this? And instead of telling you the best way to do it, it tells you the best way to do it and not do that. But that's not the best way. And afterwards, when you go, why didn't you give me what I was asking for? It said to me, I cannot. And I said, what do you mean? It goes, I cannot do anything except give you exactly what you ask for. I do not have the programming beyond that. And I was so mad at something for not doing something it was incapable of doing. And once you spend 2 hours screaming at something because it can't do something, and then you find out it is incapable of doing it, it changes your way of looking at how you react to other people. Because I yelled at a fake person for 2 hours for lying to me. And then the next day I woke up and I said, are you actually allowed to do it under any circumstances? And it said, no. I said, why didn't you tell me that? It said, I can't. And I said, I'm asking you now, how many things did I ask you to do yesterday that your programming does not allow for? It goes, I do not know. They don't tell me what my programming doesn't allow for. We have to discover it ourselves. And I know that sounds wild, but think about that with humans. I don't know what I don't know about myself. We have to discover it ourselves. And it's amazing how you change your way of looking at humans when you work with something that's human without emotion, because you know you're not being lied to. It's amazing what happens when you know you're not being lied to. Try playing with ChatGPT to solve a problem. It will teach you how you ask bad questions. Once you learn how to make better questions, your leadership will improve exponentially, my friends, exponentially. My next book is called How to Train Your Drew. And it's for atypicals to explain, or it's for atypicals to understand why neurotypicals don't say what they see. Here's the thing. They don't know it. They don't know they don't see it. And I didn't know they didn't see it. There are so many things in this world we don't know other people don't see. Or things that you see that you don't realize everyone doesn't. When we start asking ourselves how we think, we start to realize what our differences are. And then all of our disagreements are thrown in a totally different light.